Hi, everyone. You know that here on the Breakout podcast, we're all about ditching the shoulds, breaking out of life's little boxes, and stepping into a life that's fully, unapologetically your own. Today's episode is extra special. We're beyond excited to give you an exclusive sneak peek of our audiobook, Whatever the Hell You Want, an escape plan to break out of life's little boxes and live free from expectations.
We didn't write this book because we had it all figured out. We wrote it because we've been there. We know what it's like to feel stuck, buried under expectations, and unsure how to make a change without blowing up your whole life.
That's exactly why we created the Break Change model, 5 steps that helped us get unstuck, take back our power, and finally start living on our terms. And today, you'll hear Chapter 1 from the audiobook. It's real, a little messy, and it might hit a nerve or two, because real change starts with honesty.
So, take a deep breath, settle in, and enjoy this exclusive listen. And if it resonates with you,
grab your copy of Whatever the Hell You Want, available now in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook. It might just be the push you've been waiting for.
Chapter 1. Introducing Break. Have you ever changed your plans for the day or sacrificed something you wanted to meet someone else's expectations? Have you ever done something just because it's what has always been done? Of course you have. At some point, or perhaps at many points, we have all been influenced by our family, friends, partners, community, teachers, social media, and more to be, do, and behave in a certain way. Can't you just hear their voices now? You'll go broke if you start your own company. What? You can't just elope? Aren't you too old to pull off those sequins? But we all deserve happiness, security, joy, peace, and to live authentically as ourselves, which can only be achieved when we are living the life we have chosen. And this book is designed to help you live as you choose. In this chapter, we will introduce you to our plan to help you break away from the expectations that have prevented you from making this life what you really want it to be. Expectations that are like little boxes that you have squeezed yourself into, or like pants 2 or 3 sizes too small, only to find yourself stuck and unable to move freely or even breathe. We know exactly what that's like. We too have been stuck and have since spent years learning how to break free while helping others do the same. We know this path isn't easy. Bucking the status quo can be an uphill battle. While it's true that even at a young age, we both possessed a certain amount of sass, sometimes outright refusing to obey conventions, it hasn't been a walk in the park to always be exactly who we are and do exactly what we want. There have been plenty of times throughout our lives when we struggled to follow our own desires in the face of what others wanted us to do or be. Becoming change experts and launching our own business didn't happen overnight either. Identifying what works and why it works took us years of studying and observing hundreds of people as they made intentional changes for the better. Honestly, there's nothing more rewarding than helping people learn how to be truly free. Watching them break out of their boxes is just about the most exciting thing we do. Still, our very first case studies were ourselves. Before we developed the strategies you will read on these pages, we lived them through trial and error. Our stories are a reminder that choosing to break out of your boxes and live the life you want has nothing to do with being born a rule breaker or having such a tough skin that you don't care what people think. You can be human, shed as many tears as needed, and still transform your life. Each and every one of us has this ability. For the two of us, it started with one choice we had to make for ourselves, and that we all must make at some point. The choice whether to live our life or someone else's. First, we must belong to ourselves. Kelly. I've hardly been what you'd call a rebel throughout my life. I love schedules, color-coded sticky notes, and having a detailed plan. But even as a kid, I never quite saw life the same way as my family or friends did. I was in 3rd grade when my cousin got engaged, and while in the car one day, my mother, aunt, and sister discussed the wedding. Everyone started to guess how many kids the newlyweds might have, to which I said, "What if they don't want to have kids?" Everyone in the car went into a state of shock. Of course my cousin and her husband would have children, they all insisted. Then I shocked them even more. "I know I don't want to have kids," I said definitively. My aunt quickly snapped back, "Well, that's why you were put on this earth." Talk about a box to get stuck in. My only purpose in life was to procreate? No way. That comment just made me dig in my heels even more. Now I'm for sure not having kids, I thought. In Wisconsin, where I grew up, it was the norm for little girls to say they wanted to be a mommy when they grew up. It felt like everyone was expected to get married and have children. But even as I got older, I remained crystal clear that I didn't want to follow the pack on this, and I've held to that decision all these years later, despite the expectations of my extended family and community. There's certainly nothing wrong with Wisconsin, but I felt suffocated there in many ways, both personally and professionally. It seemed that nearly everyone around me was focused on their babies. They talked about the best strollers on the market, which neighborhoods had the best schools, or whether timeouts worked or not. I couldn't relate, which made it hard to find people in my age group with common interests who were willing to go out for a nice evening, especially since it meant hiring a babysitter. So when my company offered me a position in California at age 36, I jumped at the opportunity. There was just one problem. In my family and greater community, you simply didn't move far away from your parents. I assume if I'd been married and my husband got a job in California, that would have been considered more acceptable. But as a single woman moving to another state clear across the country, no one could understand it. It was yet another little box I was supposed to sit in quietly and dutifully. When my company offered to relocate me, I thought, it would be crazy not to do this. I could break out of the box, or I could stay where I was, complaining nonstop for the next 20 years. So I took a deep breath, said, "Fuck the expectations," and went west. After the move, I spent a lot of time crying. I was filled with excitement at how refreshing and altogether different California felt, and to reunite with Keri, who had moved to Los Angeles 6 months before. But I was also deeply heartbroken knowing that my family had doubts. Yet, despite my family's reaction, I knew it was the right thing to do for me and what I wanted out of my life. It took them a long time to get over it, but I'm happy to say that now they're 100% on board. Taking that leap allowed me to start a whole new and exciting phase of my life. I'm so grateful I had the courage to say no to what everyone else thought I should do and follow what felt right for me. It led to the founding of my company with Keri and many great adventures that I could have missed. When I packed and walked away, I had no way of knowing if my parents would ever come around. I'm lucky they did. It's true that sometimes following our heart can cause others to cut us off. But if I had stayed just to placate them, I would have relegated myself to that little box, feeling like I was wearing a straitjacket. The tendency to shape our lives based on the expectations of others is responsible for a lot of the world's misery. For that reason, I believe the only choice we have is to be ourselves. The alternative is unacceptable. We all want and need other people to help us feel we belong. But first and foremost, we have to belong to ourselves. You can't afford to wait. Keri. In some ways, I have been a natural at turning my back on the status quo. When I was a kid, I brushed off the Brownies troupe because they wanted us to pay 25 cents for playtime, and I thought that was dumb. Why should we pay 25 cents when members can just come over to my house to play for free? So, I started my own version of a Brownies troupe when I was in 2nd grade. "Join my troupe," I said, "and you won't have to pay me anything." On second thought, that might have been a missed revenue opportunity. You'll also learn more in a later chapter about how I threw tradition out the window when I planned my wedding in Vegas. But I don't want you to think I just came out of the womb ready to give everybody's expectations the finger. I know firsthand that what others expect of us, or what we expect of ourselves, can take a horrible toll. When I was in my late teens, I was in an enormous amount of emotional pain. My parents had divorced when I was 5 years old, and I lived with my mother. She had such high expectations of me since she saw any failing on my part as a reflection on her. I had to behave like a miniature version of her or she would be embarrassed. In her mind, any assertion of my own identity invalidated her own choices and self-image. She was disgusted that I didn't like orchestra concerts, and if I got sick, she took it as a reflection on her. "I can't believe you're sick. How will that make me look?" she'd say. She also graded my behavior from A to F, as if she was giving me a report card. At the same time, I felt I was failing to meet the expectations of my father and the new family he had built. I was supposed to just accept the new family without any negative feelings about it because my dad needed that illusion. All I wanted was to be loved and accepted, but I felt very much alone. By my teen years, the weight of these expectations and my parents' conditional form of love built up my anger to a breaking point. I wanted to shatter the image that my mother created with her friends and family, so I plotted my suicide. That will show her, I thought. And as someone who tends to follow through on goals, I intentionally crashed my car. Afterward, I sat inside it, realizing I was barely injured. Great, I thought. Nothing will change. And nothing did. My parents blamed it all on stress. She just does too much, they claimed, in complete denial. Meanwhile, I was shamed by my grandparents for being a bad driver. I came out of the hospital feeling just as unlovable as before. Inside, I wanted to scream, telling them all, "I did it on purpose to show you all that your pressure and expectations are bullshit." But I didn't. I carried that secret with me, along with the belief that I was unlovable, and I didn't tell anyone until much later in life. At the age of 28, I finally started dealing with the pain of my upbringing and the expectations that provided me with such a shaky foundation. There were a lot of tears, some heavy drinking, and a hefty amount of avoidance before I finally got enough therapy to help me break out. But I did it. Bye-bye, boxes. From where I sit now, I'm so grateful I didn't die in that car crash. I would have missed the beautiful life I have today with my husband, son, friends, and my bestie Kelly. My life is kick-ass because I get to be myself with the people I love most. I finally have the unconditional love I wanted so much as a kid. And this is what propels me to pay it forward. I hate for others to be in the kind of pain I experienced, and I know that far too many people are. I know how many try to mold themselves into what others want. But like Kelly, I've learned that living a lie is an awful life sentence. Breaking out and being who we are might feel difficult in the short term, but in the long term, it gives us the gift of freedom. Ultimately, that's the only way to be truly alive, and I'm just glad I survived and gave myself the opportunity to discover the rewards of being me rather than someone else's picture of me. My choice to break out of the boxes that others had chosen for me and build a life on my own terms ultimately saved my life. And I'm so glad I didn't wait any longer to do it. Luckily, for most of us, breaking out of our boxes and refusing to abide by unwanted expectations is not quite so dramatic, but it can still be so stifling that we settle for less than the full life we're capable of enjoying. We simply can't afford to wait to find out who we are, what we truly want, or to take action to design our life accordingly. If the only choice for a full life is to be yourself, then the only time to be unapologetically you is now. With that in mind, let's take a look at the process that will serve as your foundation while you walk through these chapters with us. The break method. Throughout this book, you will learn how to identify the little boxes of expectation that have kept you trapped. Then, you will prioritize what you want and map out how to get it. This is how you will finally live a life of unwavering choice and lasting freedom. To help you get there, we have created a process we call Break. Each letter stands for one part of the process that you will follow as you continue reading. Where did break come from? In our human resources jobs, we have followed what are called organizational change management models. That might sound like a big yawn, but they're actually pretty cool. Even when working with a Fortune 125 company to transform an 1,800-person business delivery model, we discovered that organizational changes are still all about individual people. Companies don't change, humans do. So, as we started to work with individuals, worked on transforming our own lives at the same time, and interviewed our many podcast guests, the steps that truly work to help people change and break out of those confining boxes became clearer and clearer. We borrowed a bit from the change models we knew, like those of Dr. John Cotter, Kurt Lewin, and ADKAR, part of the ProSci model. But our version is all about saying au revoir, sayonara, and adios to the expectations that are between you and the life you deserve. That's how Break was born. Break stands for brave. Be brave enough to think about making a change. Realize which expectations stand in your way. Explore the possibilities available to you. Act to get out of those stuffy boxes. Keep it going and live free. Let's talk a bit more about each of these. The first three letters, B, R, and E, represent the pre-change stage of the process and part 1 of the book. The A represents the actual change stage, and the K is the post-change phase. Part 2 of the book will focus on the change and post-change phases. Whether it's one person or a whole organization, it seems to be human nature to want to jump to the action part, skipping the pre- and post-change bits. After all, that feels like the meatiest segment, doesn't it? Where you'll see the most results? But we have learned the hard way that skipping the pre- and post-change stages is a whopper of a mistake, because it's difficult to sustain changes without the right kind of preparation. That's why we will spend the most time on the pre-change part. You simply can't break free of even one expectation without each of these steps. Let's now look at each letter a little more closely. Be brave enough to think about making a change. This first step of pre-change is about taking a deep breath and being brave enough to just think about changing. We'll start by asking how you are really feeling about the different areas of your life. Do you know you're stressed out or dissatisfied in some ways, but have no idea why? In this step, you will begin to take an honest look at where you are right now and start to muster up the bravery to think about what needs to happen next. Realize the expectations standing in your way. This is a step where we really lean in on increasing your awareness of the expectations you have faced in the different areas of your life and the harm they may be causing you. These include family, religion, and various aspects of society. Like peeling an onion, after we've cut to the center, you will have greater self-awareness. And we all need more awareness. Psychologist Tasha Eurich, author of the book Insight: The Surprising Truth About How Others See Us, How We See Ourselves, and Why the Answers Matter More Than We Think, conducted a series of surveys and came to the conclusion that 95% of us think we're self-aware, but only 10 to 15% of us actually are. Yikes. As our podcast guest and Own Your Amazing coach, Dr. Denise Moore Revel, told us, you've got to stop and get to know who you really are, outside of your husband, outside of your kids, outside of your career. Who are you really for you? That's the first question, and that's the hardest question for a lot of us to answer. In other words, are you living the life you want for you, or are you trying to be who everyone else wants you to be? That's what you'll answer in this part, and you'll find it has the most chapters of any part of the book because it's just that important. Explore the possibilities available to you. It's one thing to realize you have undertaken a career because it's what your parents expected of you, or that you have been restricted under the weight of gender expectations or your religion's requirements. But it's another thing to unravel what you might want instead. This step is when you'll start to think about what truly matters to you. With the expectations taken out of the equation, what the hell do you really want? Act to get out of those stuffy boxes. Now, we finally move out of the pre-change phase into the stage everyone wants to jump ahead to. This is when you will devise your escape plan and decide how to make whatever the hell you want a reality. What do you need to do to finally be free? Keep it going and live free. As we said, the post-change phase is another one people like to skip, much to their detriment. You'll learn just how easy it is to fall back into old habits and let those confining expectations take over your life again. After all, society is always trying to lock us back up in restrictive boxes, and you probably have some family members who would feel more comfortable with you in an old familiar box. So that means it's up to you to stay free by learning how to reinforce the changes you've made and to sustain your new life. In other words, post-change is all about sticking the landing and living the life you choose for the rest of your days. That's the plan. We hope you're as excited about it as we are and ready to roll up your sleeves because we want you to roll them up right now. Be brave. How many of us sleepwalk through our days, barely even noticing if we've had a single moment of enjoyment? We're so busy filling up the dishwasher, rushing to a meeting with our boss, and fighting with customer service over the cell phone bill that we don't have time to think about what's working in our lives and what isn't. Hey, it's easy to do, and we're all guilty of it at least some of the time. But before you can figure out what you need to do differently in order to make the most of this life, you've got to stop and be brave enough to take an inventory of how you feel right now. And we mean really stop and give it more attention than just lip service. That's where the bravery really comes in. You may not even realize yet that in one or more areas of your life, you're sitting in a box so little that your inner badass has no room to play, fight, or maybe even breathe. Let's assess how big or small your life's boxes are from where you sit at this moment. The squeeze. In the following exercise, you'll look at a few key areas of your life and ask yourself just how boxed in you feel. These areas include your family of origin, your religion/spiritual background, your community, love/marriage, and your career/work life. How do you know if you're stuck in a box? Do you feel burned out, stressed, dissatisfied, or like you aren't free to be yourself in this aspect of your life? We believe that your level of satisfaction is likely to correlate with the number of unwanted expectations that you face in that aspect of your life. So, for each one, we have created an image that represents the little boxes you might find yourself stuffed inside. You are sitting in the center. For each, you'll choose one of the following. Small is for the areas of your life where you feel super duper boxed in, suffocated, and crushed by the walls closing in on you. If this is the case, you're sure this aspect of your life isn't working, even if you have no idea why yet. Medium is when you feel pretty boxed in but are still handling your shit. This box isn't as small as the previous one. You have a little more breathing room, but at the same time, you're stressed out. This part of your life isn't exactly making you want to dance to your favorite song, even if, again, you aren't quite sure what's causing that boxed-in feeling. Large is when you can feel you're on the verge of breaking out. The box is pretty big, you're near the edge of its walls, and you're almost free. There isn't much left that's holding you back. Outside the box is when you're free and on the outside of the walls. No damn box at all, baby. You have wings and can go wherever you want without restrictions. Now, we realize that you might also look at one or more of these aspects of your life and say, I don't have a clue. There's a big question mark over your head, and you're wandering around lost thinking, am I in a box here? Hell if I know. That's okay too. It will become clearer as you turn each page and discover more about the expectations that may be keeping you from flying freely wherever the hell you want to go in life. As you look at each box, you will see visually just how much breathing room you have or how restricted you are. We invite you to get messy and defy the expectations of a buttoned-up book owner. Go ahead and write all over the pages of this puppy. If you need permission, here it is. We know this exercise might mean some uncomfortable truth-telling for you, but breaking out from what's holding you back has to start with the hard truth. Be brave, remember? For each of the boxes, trace a line around the outside walls if you feel your box is large, the middle walls if you feel your box is medium, or the inside walls if you feel your box is small. Or, if you feel clueless about this one, circle the person with a question mark over their head. If you're flying free outside the walls, congratulations. Circle the person with wings. Family of Origin Box. This box represents how you feel about your life with your parents, siblings, and extended family. Even if you're no longer in touch with anyone in your family, whether parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, or cousins, you're still emotionally affected by what happened in the household where you grew up. Are you stressed out or burned out in relation to your family? Do you feel your box is small, medium, or large, or do you feel free to express your true self with them? If you are no longer in touch with them, do you think what you experienced in your childhood home still has a significant hold on you? Religion Spirituality Box. This box is all about how boxed in you feel in your religious or spiritual life. Think carefully. Are you free and flying outside of the box, or are you stressed and restricted in this area of your life? Is your box small, medium, large, or open with no walls at all? For example, in Kelly's case, she felt restricted in a tiny box when she was young, but she has blown those walls wide open so that she's now free to be who she wants to be in her religious/spiritual life. Community Box. This box represents how satisfied you feel about your community and culture. Do you feel connected to the people in the area where you live, or do you feel suffocated by your community/culture? For example, maybe you feel you have to act a certain way to be accepted by the people in your community. How big is your box for this one? Love/marriage/kids box. How satisfied do you feel right now about your love life or marriage/partnership? Bear in mind that this applies even if you aren't in a relationship. If you're very satisfied with your relationship or singlehood, you'll be free without a box at all. Otherwise, choose a small, medium, or large box based on how you feel in this area. Career/work box. Do you enjoy your work, or is it a drudge? Do you love what you do, or do you wish you were doing something else? How you answer these questions will help you determine if your box in this area of your life is small, medium, large, or non-existent. Gender box. Do you feel that gender expectations in your life have put you in a box? This can mean expectations that make you act a certain way or hold you back from being yourself, whether you're male, female, non-binary, or any gender expression. It might mean that you have experienced discrimination in your life. Do you feel your box in this area of your life is small, medium, large, or non-existent? Your breaking point. Slow burn or box on fire? If some of your boxes are small, medium, or large, you are in one of two situations. 1, a slow burn, feeling vaguely unsettled, maybe even frustrated for years, but not willing to do anything about it yet. Or 2, with a box that's on fire as you sit in the center with the burning walls rapidly closing in on you. With number 2, there's no question you're fed up. The truth of the matter is that we often refuse to take action until we reach that number 2 state. In change management, we call this the burning platform. It's when the situation gets hot enough that we truly hate it. That's when we're willing to finally jump out of the box and change for the better. If you've picked up this book, chances are you have a burning platform in some area of your life, something that's eating at you and calling for change sooner rather than later. But you don't have to wait for the walls of your boxes to catch fire. You can be in a medium or large box and still make changes if you figure out what you need in order to fly out from within those walls. And that's what we're prepared to help you do. And no matter what you discovered in this exercise, don't judge yourself. We have all stuffed ourselves into boxes in life, and there's no shame in doing what you had to do to get where you are now. In this moment, you're revving up your bravery to make your life better. Give yourself a big gold star for that, because not everybody's willing to fight for the life they want. You are. You'll notice that we haven't included some areas that are often included in these kinds of exercises, such as health/fitness and money/finances. We wanted to focus on the places where people we have interviewed tend to fall prey to expectations. But the break process will work for these areas too, if you'd like to try it at any time. Before you dive into the next part of the pre-change process, we want to make something else crystal clear. As you read these pages, don't you dare convince yourself that you're exempt from having the life you want. Don't tell yourself it's a pipe dream or that only some people get to fulfill their dreams. That's the worst kind of BS. None of the people we know who have broken out and found freedom from expectations, including the two of us, have felt they had some kind of special sauce or magic to make it happen. They just did the work, and that's what it takes. The magic is all in your commitment to yourself. The next chapters will help you unravel the expectations in different aspects of your life that have almost certainly resulted in any of the small boxes you found yourself stuffed inside. Then, you'll know exactly where you need to break free in order to live the authentic life you're after. Take a deep breath. Let your anticipation be your guide, and just be brave enough to turn the page.